DBS community, welcome back to another video with Kyle Chris, and today we're going to be going over the state of the meta for green, currently in set 18, or the beginning of Zenkai format. So make sure you guys like, subscribe, let me know what you guys think of the content, as well as what do you guys think of green's place currently in the format. Let me know down below. Love to have some productive conversations with you guys. So green so far has been I would say slept on by most of the community. People still say green's bad. I believe if you calculate green in both EU and NA, I believe green has the second most tops at all the majors so far, or all the bigger events, whatever those are called in real life events, whatever. I believe green has the most tops, next to red, obviously. Now, like red and blue probably have, I believe red and blue have the most finishes, you know, as first or second place, but green has been holding its own far better than something like yellow. Yellow hasn't really topped that much. But green is sort of this sleeper color that people just kind of have slept on since the beginning of, I don't know, the last two sets. And there's people who continue still to play green, who are finding ways to kind of upset the meta. And it's very interesting to see. These three leaders here have been, I think, the three that have the highest placings so far within like the 4 or 5 big events that we've had so far this year, which is King Cold, King Piccolo, and Cell. And for various different reasons, I think all three of these leaders are very good in this current format, among some other green leaders too, and we'll kind of go into that now as to kind of why. So the first one being King Cold. King Cold has a very good matchup against a majority of the format. Most of the red decks, especially Sin, King Cold, depending on if King Cold can go first, King Cold actually has a very good chance of just stopping Sin from being able to play any of its smaller battle cards. And that's a really big advantage that not a lot of other colors have. A lot of his advantage comes from the fact that he is a untapped 2 leader, which is just very, very good right now. Cooler Effortless Strike. This is a counterplay card that it's been out for a very long time now, and it doesn't really get any other play in other decks. It just doesn't find itself being played at all. But the card itself, being able to hit a 4 or less, and then your opponent pitches a card from their hand, is just very just undervalued currently. If you look at 2 of the biggest decks, which is Gogeta and Sin, Cooler has the ability to hit the majority of, I believe, all of the cards that both of those decks play, except for their boss monsters, right? In Sin, you can hit the 4-drop, you can hit both of the 2-drops that they play. New Ruler if they end up playing it, and the same thing with Gogeta. You can hit all of their Arrival, Goku and Vegetas, and that's very impressive. Like, being able to just snipe any of those cards coming down for 1 energy is very good. It stops them from gaining any sort of value, keeps your unison alive, and you know, it kind of extends the game so you can you know, get advantage. King Cold also did get a new champ card, Transfer of Power. This card is essentially the replacement for the 4-drop blocker that King Cold was playing. Essentially, it can become a 2 cost. So you can play it off Anticipated Onslaught. It has 20k crit, and then it has Activate Main, where you pop a field, you kill any one of your opponent's battle cards, and then you Z-charge any field from your drop area. This is good. King Cold doesn't really utilize Z-Energy a lot, mainly just to play this Frieza that's on screen. So just being able to cycle... essentially doing the Paragus effect, right? Like you get to cycle a field spell, kill something, get the field spell effect, and then put something else in your Z energy if you need to, and then you can use Berry Blue to, you know, play it back out. And obviously you have Frieza, the Z battle card here, which again, a very undervalued card that people just think is awful. Being able to snipe a 5 or less, being a 15k double strike, and then when you swing with something else other than this card, you can pop as the energy, and then your opponent pitches a card, which comes in handy a lot of the time. This is also a Frieza Clan, so Frieza Clan gains 5k off of Terrified Realization. So this is actually a 20k double strike deflect that pops a 5 cost when you play it in this deck. So that's really good. You pair this with the King Cold here. You're swinging 20, 25 crit, pitching, make them pitch a card, swinging 25 crit, and then swinging 20 crit on top of all the other stuff that this leader can do. So very, very high valued leader, I think. I think this is a very good leader going into the rest of this format. I think people can play this deck and they're going to find success with it. Problem will be getting into top cut stuff, right? Like, I think green's going to be consistently able to get top 16. But I don't know if King Cold's going to be able to take down an event. That's going to be very, very interesting. I don't think the King Cold promo is enough to give King Cold that push. But we'll see as we kind of go on further into the format here. Next one's going to be Cell. And Cell 2 is also getting some support here. This time in the anniversary box, in which this new 8-drop Cell, this multicolor Cell here, which is a 15k arrival with barrier. Also is a free multicolor super combo, or like a pseudo combo, so it does not cost 1 energy to combo this card. When you play this, you get to add a 2-star ball from your deck. What's cool is you actually get to cycle your deck. You can kind of just look through your deck. Now what's interesting is that this wants you to play out the 9-drop. The 9-drop that currently does not work with the deck. However, the effect on this says if your leader is a green Cell, your leader is also treated as yellow for the turn, meaning you should be able to go into the 9-drop Xeno Cell, which doesn't really have any value, unfortunately. It's just a 30k swing, so I don't know actually what the purpose of that is. Maybe they're going to give it more support. But this card here is very good. Being a 15k barrier, barrier is really good, obviously. And it's just another target for your fusion pieces that you have, right? Obviously, this deck has probably one of the best win conditions for a green deck, being Perfect Force into Xenocell. And it's something that your opponent has to take into consideration as basically a ticking time bomb, where once you get to turn 5, if your opponent does not have an answer for Perfect Force, they're probably going to lose. If not, they're going to lose their entire hand. And a lot of decks really can't handle that. That's just going to end up putting a really bad just blanket effect over them. Like, all right, cool, I have 15 cards in hand, and all that drawing, it's gone. It's all in the drop, right? This top card here, probably a lot of people don't even know what this is, Revolting Regenerator. So this is a Cell card that I tech into Cell as an anti-red card. So if any of your 8 cost are removed by an opponent's skill, you get to play this guy for free, and then he snipes a 5 or less. So he's like a charismatic villain that snipes 5 or less. Why he's important is that one of the biggest reasons why people don't play this deck, or people think Cell's bad, is because when red's really good, this deck has not been the greatest, right? We saw it with U7, and we're seeing it now with Sin. And essentially what people are saying is that when the 8-drop dies, you know, obviously the permanent says it goes to the drop. So you gain no value as a blocker. Well, you can still play out the 8-drop and then decide to kill it, and then you can play this 9-drop to snipe their 4-drop Sin that they just played. So it gives you a lot of good versatility just as another defensive target. You can use this and then charismatic. So it's something that people I don't think have utilized yet in the Cell build. There's a Cell build that I've played quite a bit that I uses this card for other reasons as well. I think it's probably the way that Cell's gonna be played, especially now that I see that we have a green-yellow support for the deck. So I think this is probably the best green leader overall. It draws a ton of cards. It has spot removal. It has built-in crit, which is very good. It has probably the best green just win condition that we have currently. So I definitely think it takes this top spot as I won't say the best green deck, but definitely probably the best green deck for this format. You know, going forward, especially once the anniversary box comes out. Then we have King Piccolo, and this leader has it's definitely good. Definitely good. It's not red Piccolo good, but it is definitely good. The amount of spamming you can do with this deck, you know, being able to free play stuff, you end up getting a pretty big hand, and depending on how you build the deck, you can go really aggro really quickly as early as turn 2, and it puts you in a very good scenario to just kind of, you know, push resources out of your opponent's hand. It's a very good deck. I've been loving piloting this deck. I've been playing it for quite a while now, and found some success with it locally so far. So it feels like a good deck. I think what holds it back is it does feel kind of like it's forced to be an aggro deck because your leader has to take a life when it attacks, which kind of sucks. That's kind of my biggest problem with the deck, is that you kind of forced to attack and take a life. So, but no, the deck is, I think, very good. I haven't seen much variation in people playing the deck. I know of a few tech cards that people have played that are different than some other people. I won't spoil their tech, but there's some cool things you can do in this deck. Overall, it is a good aggro deck, and probably will be more so an aggro deck. I think it's missing something. It's missing another King Piccolo or something to make it, be able to utilize well. One of the worst parts about this deck is the Z Awaken. Most Z Awakens are at 3 life. This one's at 2 life, and you have to have a King Piccolo in the drop, and then you have to have a King Piccolo in your Z energy. And with the 2, you only have to, the 2 King Piccolos. There's not much reason to combo them and things, so it's kind of weird. It's a deck. It seems like it kind of folds in on itself a little bit, where its weak points are. It's kind of like, yeah, this is what I suck at, and there's no real covering that up. So I think next to Cells is probably the second best. Just because it is an aggro deck. King Cold, I think, is sequencing wise a little bit better, but that deck, you do run 12 or 14 dead cards that have no combo power at all, while this deck is essentially just all 5Ks and then like homicidal clones. So some decks that I think people will have to want to look at that haven't really been explored too much, or kind of in that rogue category. We have Ginyu, SS3 Gotenks, and Majin Buu, all of which have gotten some sort of support in this current set, or getting some support. Majin Buu and Ginyu being the cards that are getting these cards you see on the screen here in the anniversary box here in about a week or so, which definitely changes the deck and gives the deck a little more power. The Ginyu one being able to give all your Ginyus barrier, which I think is very good, and then also being able to cycle the top cards of your deck. And the Ginyu deck basically just plays stuff for free on top of it. So the Majin Buu leader, however, gets a Z Awaken, and this Z Awaken does give the deck a little more. For one, making it a 20k, which is obviously, having a Z Awaken leader is going to be good. But being able to play out a 4-drop for free, and that's really good because that also can turn into some other cards down the line. So it just gives it open availability for future support. Gotenks is a deck that, depending on who you talk to, people say this deck is completely garbage. People say this deck is top tier. I think it kind of falls in the middle, in kind of the rogue category. This deck is so based on the pilot and how well the pilot knows Gotenks, because the deck has so many problems, being that it is extremely fusion heavy now because of the different fusions you have. You gained 3 new fusions that you play in the deck that are not Grim Reaper, so you now have basically a deck that is focused solely on playing fusion targets. You don't have much room for tech. It's really weird. This deck is really reliant on Dormant, being able to stay alive, and currently with how Unisons are dying pretty quickly in a lot of games, it could just kind of backfire on Gotenks, especially if you don't have the ability to close out a game. However, this Z Awaken leader makes this leader have a very powerful endgame, being able to make this leader a 30k double strike just off rip. So that's obviously ends up being a big help. So I think it's going to depend on who pilots the deck. There's a lot of good that this deck can do. It's just really dependent on how much someone really wants to play the deck. Another leader that I didn't put up here is Master Roshi's Turtle Skull. I think that deck is far better than what I gave it credit for at first. Currently working on a list for that. We're actually going to put out a video for it. Maybe within the next week or so. I'm gonna finish doing all the state of the meta videos before we dive into anything, especially the anniversary stuff. Now, this is a very interesting thing that I want green players to be aware of, and Red Sin players kind of already know this because they do this with red yellow. You guys have already seen my state of the meta for red. It's kind of the same concept. So warp lands, I think, are going to be a way of being able to tech in multicolor into every deck, and I think it's going to help solidify as we go into Nats format. They're going to be releasing multicolor in the next set, so having access to multicolor for any color is going to be really good, especially energy manipulation with Bean. I think if we know the past two or past three, I think it's all three national champions played a multicolor deck, if I'm not mistaken. Except for, actually, you know what? The last one did not. Andrew Duvall did not. But the first two before that were, I think, yellow-blue, right? Having the access of Bean seems really good, right? Like, having the access to be able to play Bean is really good. And what this Rumshi Kusu card does, this allows you to warp a blue and a green card from your drop, and you get to charge this with no energy exhaust. I think that's a very powerful skill that we're kind of overlooking right now. And then you have a card you can kind of utilize with the multicolor, which is Hidden Potential. So Hidden Potential is a card that you bounce anything that's being played 4 or less to the drop, and you get to restand a blue or a green energy. So why this is good is green doesn't have anything to necessarily deal with a lot of blue's floodgates, mainly Ready to Rumble, right? You also have a lot of other 4-drops that sometimes you can't hit, especially on offense, right? Cooler, as I just talked about in a few slides ago, works, but it only works on your opponent's turn. So your opponent's not going to floodgate on their turn. That doesn't make much sense. But this card allows you for 2 energy. You can bounce something 4 or less, and then you can restand an energy, which then grants you access to your Bean and other things like that. So I think green-blue is going to be a potential Nats combination that can definitely kind of maybe push green into like that top 8, top 4 category. It's just going to take the right leader, and I think there's like 1 or 2 that I have my eye on that potentially could make this work. But we'll keep that to myself because I want to test that to see if it's Nats capable against the current meta, and then go from there. So, but just stay wary of all these multicolor check lands or warp lands, I guess, from the Divine Multiverse. If you have a particular color combination that you want to try out, I would buy the warp lands from them now while they're still a few bucks. I think the only one that's really expensive is red blue. But red blue I don't think you're going to want to buy because there's already a champ card that does the same thing, so that doesn't matter. So this is obviously the big green support that we got that's just overall just good staples. It's the Fated Rival combination of Goku and Piccolo Jr. Goku being able to snipe anything ignoring barrier, and then Piccolo being able to snipe a unison as well as using it for hand destruction. This combination is going to be used in every green deck probably from now until these get power crept in like 5 or 6 sets, or next block, whatever. These 2 cards are so good. Once we get a just like a generically good green leader, and we don't really have, I think Cell may be the best generically good green leader, or the closest thing to a generic good green leader that we have at least in the current format of cards. But if one just randomly pops up, whether it's a new one or someone finds an old one that works really well with stuff, this combination just can be thrown in anything, and it really does a lot of work. If you can plan a Goku and then just Piccolo Jr. later on in the game, you can basically just demolish Unison, especially against blue, where you can just snipe their Majin Buu away, and then it makes it very difficult for them to defend themselves now that you kind of remove their one big bastion of defense. And then last but not least, it's going to be this Golden Frieza card here. So Unison of Malice, this is a card that I've talked about in some of my King Piccolo videos. But I feel a lot of people just still complaining that green doesn't have a way of stopping Gogeta. So this card here is your kind of a better version of Big Armoire. So the +1's cool if you end up playing it early. You can use it as a cycle, and it's a 15k crit. But why this is important is the -2. So your opponent cannot attack unless they choose one of their battle cards, energy cost 2 or more, and place in the owner's drop area. So there's 2 very good effects on this card. One, this should in a sense stop Gogeta, because Gogeta cannot pay the cost of this skill. So essentially, when you do this, your opponent can't play, your opponent can play Gogeta, but they can't swing with Gogeta and pay the cost of this, because it's not affected by skills, right? It's the same thing, I believe, as the it should be the same thing as the imposing presence theory, which is that you can't neg the card because it can't be chosen by skills. So it just kind of negates it, and it's not allowing it to do anything. What's also cool is that if your opponent plays a barrier heavy deck like Trunks Vegeta or the reboot Kid Ku, they can't pop their barrier guys to swing. So it just essentially kind of shuts down their entire turn. And another cool thing is that your opponent cannot choose Z battle cards to place in the drop area. So this card does not say KO, meaning that if your opponent goes to swing with something and they go to KO a Z battle card, it says place in the drop area, and they actually are not placed in the drop area. It's the same thing with successor as to why you can't use Z battle cards for a successor, because they cannot be placed in the drop area. They're actually removed from the game instead. So it actually doesn't finish the cost of the effect. So I believe that's how it actually works. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but in turn, this is in some decks a searchable big armoire that's gonna stop Gogeta. This is just, I think it's a better tech than something like Big Armoire. Although it is a decent card, but just being able to stop anything from attacking, right? You can use 2 energy for Big Armoire, and then your opponent's just gonna, just snipe you down with small battle cards and Z battle cards, and none of that is, 6 cost or more. So this just forces them to any battle card attack. They can't attack with it. So just a 2 cost baby hatch. Yes, you have to waste 2 energy on your turn. You're not doing much with it, blah, 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 whatever. But sometimes it's what you need to get to the next turn, maybe from 3 energy to 4 energy, 4 energy to 5 energy, or whatever. Just allows you to just buy an extra turn so that we can play some defense, and then next turn you're able to open up and use all the great green staples that we do have for offensive stuff. So that's going to do it for me here today for the green state of the meta. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. As always, thank you guys for watching and supporting, and I will see you guys in the next video.